and welcome to season 2 of Breaking the Silence. I wanted to create a space where people can tell the truth. And last season we had a great 20 some episodes. I forget exactly. Just amazing. It was super healing for me. It was great for the guests, the audience. I had awesome feedback. And I wanted a space where grief, addiction, healing, loss, mental health, and some of the hardest experiences that we have can be discussed open and honest. And without what I didn't realize that every conversation was teaching me a lot of the same lessons. The questions that we ask matter. Some questions keep us caged. The why me, the what if, how could I have stood it, what did I do wrong, what could I have done better. Some questions create movement, or some questions create doors. What am I meant to understand? What can I learn? What lesson was this experience that I chose? What now? And what am I carrying that was never mine to carry? Season 2 is built around that simple theme. Some questions create cages, better questions create doors. Today is June 18th. It's another angelversary for my middle son, James. In my journey as a survivor, learning to live after falling loss, it's a deeply personal episode, and I did this last year on June 18th also. Just a tribute to him, to my beautiful boy. And I wanted to do that again to kick off season 2. And then October, I'll also do it to Doug, my oldest, my firstborn, who I lost in October of 20. Look for that coming in October. But today, I don't want to just share who he was and how he died. Those details, yes, they're important, but lessons that he taught me in 29 years and that he's continued to teach me over the last 2 years are so vital. And for a long time, I lived inside the questions that had no answers. The what if, or the why, or could I have saved him? What could I have done more? What could I have done differently? And those became cages. I learned pretty quickly that they weren't in me. But this episode will explore the truth about love versus control, and the reality of addiction and pain, and the lessons that took me a whole lifetime and burying 2 sons to fully understand. Carrying someone is not the same as loving them. And I think we do that often. We, especially as moms or parents in general, we want to save them. We want to shelter them from the hard parts of life. We don't want them to hurt. We don't want to watch them go through the hard lessons. But the biggest thing I realized after losing James, I lost my boys 8 months apart, one in October, one in June. And it was hard with James because he had been living with me and he kept telling me, Mom, you can't live your life for me or around me. And inherently I knew that, And I've always known that. And I've always taught my children to be independent and be self-responsible, and that actions and decisions have consequences, and all the things. But I finally realized that, yes, I was in my grief of losing my oldest, Doug. I was holding on tighter because I was afraid to lose him also, and I knew he was in a really dark place. He was in active addiction again, and he was dealing with a lifetime of unprocessed trauma. He was dealing with the unprocessed grief from losing his brother and losing a stepsister prior to that. It was a lot. And he told me regularly, I don't want to die, but I don't want to live in the state I'm in. Which I get, because that darkness is hard, that pain is hard, and that's when people start to self-medicate and they start to do things that are not logical, that are not rational. And he had been alcohol sober for almost 4 years, and then there was the whole let's ration this, because he didn't want to stay where he was. He wanted to get better. He wanted to heal. He wanted to find his way out of that darkness. And sober James was very different than tipsy James. So even though he said, Mom, you have to ration what I can drink, when it came to that point of, no, you can't have more, then it would be just one, or he would sneak, find them or whatever, and he's an adult. I'm not going to hide things, and I can't tell him, no, you can't have it. He's old enough to go buy his own. Or he would just go to the neighbor's trap house, and it was always there. But him telling me you can't live your life around me or around mine was hard to acknowledge, because I really was. I was scared to lose him. I was scared to leave him alone, because he was in active addiction and he did stupid shit when he was drunk. And I didn't want to come home and find out that he went to jail, or come home and find out that something worse had happened, which ultimately is what happened. Not that I came home to find it. I was here, and I got the knock on my door that he had been hit by a truck. But that realization that I can't live my life around his was absolutely true. I can't put my life on hold hoping that you make better choices, because I can't control what you do. And I can't do more. I can't be more. I can't love you more. I can't tell you no. And I have to focus on me, because if I'm worried about what he's doing, then I'm not focused on what I'm supposed to be doing. And nobody else is going to focus on that except me. So that was huge, because that's that love versus control. We can love somebody and allow them to live their own life, walk their own journey, make their own choices. And it doesn't mean we love them any less. But love doesn't mean that we control them. Love doesn't mean that we tell them, you can't do this or this. I'm going to come babysit my 29-year-old kid because he's going to get drunk and do stupid shit. Yeah, he did. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. So the blame and the shame and the guilt that I felt after was not mine to carry. And I had to learn to put that down. And I had to learn the difference between what was love and what was control. And learning how to step back and allow our loved ones to fail, allow them to have their human experiences, whether they're good or bad. We celebrate when they're good, but when they're perceived as bad, then we get all crazy about it. And it doesn't mean they weren't supposed to happen, because that's where our lessons come from. And I fully believe that we choose those lessons before we come into this human life, and we choose the soul contracts of the environments, the other souls that we're meant to connect with, and we agreed to those things. And as we wake up in this human life and we remember who we came here to be, and we remember that there are lessons we came here to learn, then we start to see that. And he chose me to be his mama for 29 years. He chose to teach me through his crazy goofball life to live pushing all the edges, to live for today. That was his biggest thing. You got to live today, Mom, because tomorrow's not promised and it might not come. And he didn't care what people, he did care what people think, but he didn't care what people think. He did crazy things and he had rational thoughts in his brain about why, even though they didn't make sense to most anybody else. But he pushed all the edges and he lived life to the fullest every waking moment. And that's what we're meant to do, is to live life to the fullest and to love without condition, to love without that control of, well, I don't like what you're doing, or I don't like the choices you're making, so I'm not going to love you as much as I did. Well, that's bullshit. I love my kid no matter what. I love my kid that's an addict as much as I love my kid that's in prison. I've been through the whole gamut of testing love. And I asked the universe, God, whatever, last year, why did my kids choose such hard lessons? And it was Doug's voice that said, Mom, because we chose you. Because we knew you could hold it. We knew you could hold us. That's a lot of gratitude, that they knew that I would be that steady, that I would be that resilient, that I could learn my lessons through them or with them. And I have to live up to that legacy. And I'm not going to do it by asking questions that keep me caged. I'm not going to do that by being stuck in grief, being stuck in those what ifs and why did it happen to me? It happened because we chose those lessons. The circumstances aren't necessarily what you focus on. The focus and the better questions that create doors are the questions about what was here for me to learn. And what am I carrying that wasn't mine? I was carrying his safety, I was enabling him to be irresponsible. and not letting him fail. And that was out of fear. That was out of my own grief. And that wouldn't have furthered my path. That wouldn't have bettered my journey. And no matter what, it wouldn't have changed the outcomes. His outcomes, his soul contracts, his soul purpose was always going to be the same, no matter what I did or didn't do. And to try to control him and try to save him or fix him is not my job, and it wasn't mine to carry. And I have to focus on myself and what I'm here to learn and what my soul purpose is and my soul contracts are. So as we come to that understanding that some questions create cages and keep us stuck and keep us in our comfort zone even, and some create doors so that we can expand and we can grow and we can remember even more of who we came here to become. Those are the biggest lessons that I learned from him. There's tons more, and I think I've posted about it, and some of my other lives have talked about it, but they both taught me so much in such short periods of time. And then in the last 2 years, well, 2.5 years, going through the portal of grief has taught me so much because of them. And they still do. They're still constantly communicating with me and talking to me and sending me signs and messages. And it's just a continuous process of learning and growing and expanding. And if we're not asking those questions that create doors, then we're just stuck in those cages. I heard a quote several years ago at a conference. It said, if we're not learning, we're dying. And that is so absolute truth. That's what we're here to do, is experience this human life and learn what we came here to learn. And that's what our focus should be on, not worrying about everybody else. So that's what James taught me the most. And he loved to travel. He wanted to travel. He didn't do it often, but he wanted to. And so we have the Fedoras for James Facebook page. At his memorial service, we sent out 29 fedoras with cards on it and asked people to take them with and post pictures of where these go. He thought the traveling gnome story was the coolest thing ever, so that's part of the backstory of that. So I will post that page link in the show notes. I'm also walking in the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. His death was ruled a suicide, even though it was accidental suicide, and that's a whole different topic that nobody talks about. That's a whole nother conversation for this show. But I'm walking in that in October, so if you want to join my team and walk with us or walk virtually, or you want to donate, I'll leave the link on there. Also, yeah, I just can't believe it's been 2 years. I was just chatting with some of the kids, and time is just such a thief. Time goes so quickly, and it's such a conundrum, you know. It's like he was just here yesterday, and it's been 2 years, and I have these grandkids that are like growing up crazy fast, and you have to take time to slow down and breathe, and that's kind of what I've done today. So this is basically all I'm doing today, and just chilling and slowing down and being grateful that I did get to be his mom and Doug's mom for as long as I did, and I still am. You know, love doesn't have limitations. You know, it doesn't stop when somebody's body dies. It continues. It's just in a different form, and that's where grief comes in. It's grief is any perceived loss. So when you lose someone you love and that love doesn't have anywhere to be directed, you have to find different ways to do that. And so we've been able to, as a family, we all have found our own little unique things that we can do. And just to continue to honor the lives that they did live and to honor their legacies, to keep them alive for the grandkids that didn't know them and don't remember them. And for us, you know, if we don't talk about them and don't share their stories, how are their memories going to stay alive? And that's why our stories are so vital. And I will leave it there. I knew this would be a super short episode, but I will also drop the link because this new season 2 has a whole new subtitle. Some questions create cages, some questions create doors. And it's going to be a kind of different format. It's still going to live stream, and it's still going to be people sharing their stories. But I do now have an application process, and it won't just be schedule and book. I want you to come on as a guest. I want to curate specific, not necessarily lessons, but specific experiences. Doesn't matter where you are in your journey. You don't have to know what questions you're asking necessarily. Or maybe you do, and maybe you want to know what's the next better question. Wherever you are, everything is welcome. And I just want to curate what topics we use so that we're not repeating all kinds of things, so that it's more helpful and serving more people. So all those links will be in the show notes, and go apply. If you have a story or you're asking the same questions over and over, or you're seeing repeat patterns and you feel like you're in a cage and you can't quite find it, go fill out the application. It's only like 10 questions, 15 questions at the most. So, or shoot me a message and let's chat and see if, it'll be a good fit. We'll get you on if everything fits. So have a great rest of your Thursday, and I will see you soon.